I was like using various dating apps to try to make friends, but then also like most of the dating apps, you can't be friends with people of the same sex. Or no, you can't be friends with people of the opposite sex.
Oh, right. Like the dating apps that have like the friend version of it. Yeah.
And I was always just like bothered by that because I'm just like, well, I'm attracted to all these people, so it's not really that purpose for this.
Hello, my bis and allies, and welcome to Bisexual Behavior. I am your host, Talia Cass, and I'm here today with Sawyer Fredericks, who is a singer-songwriter, and also you won The Voice, and was it 2015?
Yep, 2015, season 8.
Awesome. Okay, that was great. So I guess let's just dive right into it. And for those who are listening, this is also a video podcast episode, so it's actually up on YouTube as well. So if you want to watch the video, that's also an option. So thank you for being here, Sawyer. I have known about you since you won The Voice just because you're kind of local to my area, which was really exciting. And you were also, I think you were the youngest person who won. You were like 16 at the time.
Yeah, I was 16 when I won, 15 when I went on the show. And at the time, I was the youngest winner for The Voice. I think Braden Sunshine beat me after that. But, no.
But you should just keep it like I was the youngest.
I was the youngest at the time, you know.
But before we dive into your experience, I'm just going to do like a quick introduction of myself. So my name, again, is Talia. My pronouns are she, her. I am bisexual. And what about you?
I prefer he, him, or they, them, and I am bisexual.
Awesome. All the bisexual energy.
Oh, yes.
So how did you even get on The Voice? Let's like go back to the beginning.
So at the very beginning, I would say, first like to start off saying that I'm unschooled. And the reason why I want to say that is because when I was first getting into music, I was posting videos onto YouTube. And The Voice actually scouted my music on that and invited me out to do what is an audition after the open call auditions. So it's not the blind audition, but it's what's after the numbers and numbers of people that are going to it. And when they first reached out, I kind of just thought of it as a learning experience. I wasn't sure if it was going to be the right fit for my music because I'm kind of a folk artist. So I was like, I don't really see a lot of that representation on The Voice. But I went into it thinking it was a learning experience, just going to try it out. And I did that audition. They really liked my audition for it and wanted me out for the blind audition. And then they sent contracts. And then I said no.
Oh,
I said
really?
no to The Voice because the contracts were terrifying. But thankfully, one of the executives at the time reached out to my mom and me and just kind of reassured us that this bad stuff in the contracts, they wasn't going to happen.
Well, that's still terrifying.
It's still terrifying.
I don't know if I would have trusted it.
No, yeah. We basically just went on this person's like genuine vibes and we were like, okay, this seems like a good experience and we're going to go for it. But that was the start of getting onto The Voice.
Okay. So how did your life change once you went on it? Because I think, who was the person that you worked with? Was it Pharrell Williams?
Pharrell Williams was my coach on the show. And I would say drastically my life changed. Especially, I was 15 at the time. And when I got home, I couldn't go to my local grocery store without being, mobbed by people.
Oh, my God.
Which was neat and also, sad at times because I was like, oh, no, I can't just, go out to the grocery store with my mom without having to get, a ton of photos with people, which I appreciate. Everyone's, love, but also I'm just trying to get groceries.
Yeah. No, and that's got to be such, a shock when you're that young, too. I feel like when you're a little bit older, you're a little bit more, you can't really prepare for it. Of course, with Chappell Roan, for example, she's still kind of struggling with that fame, but it's got to be even more significant.
Yeah, I can only imagine what Chappell Roan is going through just with how much she's blown up through this time. But yeah, it's definitely difficult handling the public at such a young age without knowing how to do it because you haven't had any experience.
Yeah. So did you know throughout this whole time that you were bisexual, or was that was later when you put that together?
So, so the general public found out that I was bisexual because I did a post that I was calling Truthful Tuesdays at the time. I was just doing like these little posts on Tuesdays that were just about like different personal things about my life or thoughts I had on stuff. And my friends, like, I didn't think of it as like me coming out as bisexual because all my friends knew and like my family knew. So when I was doing it, I was just like, oh, this is a little casual thing. Like, here you go, people. And then it like ended up in news articles and like everywhere. Oh. And that was very daunting. But I would say that I didn't always know I was bisexual, but probably from the time I was, I would say like 14 or 15, I was aware that I was bisexual. And when I was younger, my family wasn't like the best at education on that aspect of my life. And it was kind of either you're gay or you're straight. And I was like, I was kind of like, oh, well, I'm definitely attracted to women, so I guess I'm straight.
Yeah.
And then as I was getting older, I was realizing, I'm like, wait, there are other options here.
Yeah, but I feel like it's almost like you don't even know that, like, as you mentioned, you can't even consider it of an option because there's no bisexuals out there that you could, like, refer back to.
Yeah.
Unless they were, like, a villain in a TV show or, like, you know, like a vampire shows that's, like, always there's one bisexual who's, like, the villain, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like that makes it really challenging. So if you don't mind me asking, how is it coming out to your family? I mean, you did that public post, but were you out to your family and friends before then?
Yeah, I was out to my family and friends, and they were all very supportive. It wasn't like...
That's great.
It wasn't a moment of, like, me, like, telling them, like, I am this, and they're like, oh, very supportive. But it was... my whole family has always been, like, open to that kind of stuff and not, you know, not putting it down in any way. So there wasn't any difficulty in that sense. I definitely feel like it wasn't represented in a lot of, like, my friends and family, seeing, like, either queerness or anything in my friends. So it was a little strange for me coming out in that sense because I didn't feel like I had a community that was understanding to it.
Yeah, definitely.
It was more like, you know, they were supportive because they know all about it.
That makes sense. And, like, do you feel, because we live in a small city in the capital region. I'm not sure if you live, like, in Albany per se, but... Right
now I'm actually living in Troy.
Oh, I love Troy.
Yeah, Troy's
That's awesome.
great.
I feel like there's a good queer scene in Troy because you've got Cafe Euphoria, and I feel like a lot of my listeners are not going to know what we're talking about here. But yeah, so I think one thing that I struggled with when I came out was that it's... Even though, like, when you go on dating apps, even if you aren't, like, trying to date at that time when you came out, I felt like there wasn't a ton of options. And I was seeing a lot of people that I just wasn't compatible with and just seeing the same people over and over again. Or, like, oh, this person is friends with this person that I'm friends with. And it felt like, I bet this is kind of a similar experience, even if you are in a big city, but I really struggled with that. I'm curious, like, what was it like, you know, again, being out in this kind of smaller community? And do you feel like you couldn't really find a community, or have you kind of built it since then?
So when I moved to Troy, I definitely feel like I got to be around a lot more queer people just because I actually went to Cafe Euphoria a lot and was going to their little, like, community gatherings there. I was doing the open mics, and that's actually where I've like made some of my very good friends now that are in Troy and Albany. I would say definitely, like, dating apps are always strange. Like, when I first moved to Troy, I was trying to initially, like, make friends. And I was, like, using various dating apps to try to make friends, but then also, like, most of the dating apps, you can't be friends with people of the same sex. Or no, you can't be friends with people of the opposite sex.
Oh, right, like the dating apps that have, like, the friend version of it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I was always just, like, bothered by that because I'm just like, well, I'm attracted to all these people, so it's not really that purpose for this, but yeah.
I'll be honest, like, when I was on dating apps, I made, like, queer friends that way, even if it wasn't the intention. Like, I went on a date with one person, and then they ended up being somebody that I was, like, friends with for a little bit after that, and, you know, even if we weren't compatible in that way. So it's kind of funny how that works. Like, if you're straight, that's not happening. But for queer people, I feel like we'll take what we can get friend-wise.
Yeah. Yeah, I also consider myself demisexual, so like I don't really feel a lot of attraction to people until I'm connected to them like emotionally.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Which is also very, makes it a lot more difficult to get into a more queer relationship because I feel like I have to be friends with someone for a long time to feel emotionally attached to them.
Which is really challenging. I had another guest on the show who also is demisexual, and they talked about that like journey of like even understanding what that was. What was that discovery like for you? Did you always know that you fell into demisexuality, or was that, I mean, I feel like it's a newer term anyway.
Yeah, so when I read about basically demisexuality, I just kind of connected to it in the sense of, I think I'm on it in a spectrum. I don't feel like I'm fully demisexual because obviously I still get attracted to people without knowing them fully. But I'm not the kind of person that is going to have like a one night stand with someone or anything like that. Right. Like I want a relationship. I want a committed type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
So, yeah, I can imagine that makes your dating life a little challenging when you're, like, using dating apps. Because it's just, like, not a natural way to actually meet people. But it's, like, we forced ourselves to get into that. I'm curious, though. So you mentioned coming out publicly and how it became bigger than what you even intended. So can you talk about that a little bit more? Like, what it's like to come out as somebody who has, like, fame and, like, followers behind them?
Yeah, I can talk about that. I also want to say first off, like I'm in a relationship right now, and my partner identifies as she, her. So as well as going into when I was coming out about being bisexual, I also had some like backlash of like, oh, you're dating a woman right now, so you're definitely not, bisexual. And I feel like that happens a lot for bisexual people. Is just like if you're not in both types of relationships or have been in a relationship with like a male and a female, then it's like, well, are you really bisexual?
I know.
It's so frustrating. And
it almost feels like the only way to be a valid bisexual is by being single, because to them that's like the only way you're really practicing, which is really annoying. But I can totally relate because I have a cis male partner, and we started dating after I started this podcast. So it was almost like, I feel like I had to like kind of mourn like that visibly queer identity, if that makes sense. So so I feel like it's kind of a similar thing to what you're experiencing.
Yeah. But otherwise for coming out on like social media, it was an interesting response because I also felt like it was like blown out proportion and both sides. Like I was getting a ton of support, which was nice, but also like this was like a casual like thing of me just being like, hey everybody, I'm bisexual. Like it wasn't a big deal to me. And then I also had the other side of like people like messaging me with like hate messages, and I'm just like, okay,
oh god,
like why, like these people haven't even met me and they're just like assuming I'm like some type of abomination. And it's just like, so weird responses in that sense. And I also, like I said, I had like people being like, well, you're in a relationship with this beautiful woman, how can you be bisexual? It's like, clearly you just don't know what you're talking about. It's just like,
it's really interesting because I feel like there's such a, I don't know, stigma for bisexuality, but for men it's very different from women. Like for men it's like you're secretly gay, or like, or you're not like masculine, you don't fit into those roles. But for women, it's like you're a slut. So it's like interesting how
the other funny thing is, since I've come out, I've also been having a lot of like creepy older men just be like messaging me and being just like, very inappropriate messages. And I'm just like, what are you doing on this like platform? Just messaging this like young guy on like, most of them like seem like they have kids and everything. And they're just like, oh, why aren't you posting more photos with your shirt off? And I'm just like, what?
Oh my God.
Why are you messaging me this? I'm a musician and I make music. Like, what?
That's funny. It's like, what is it like for a man to like experience being hit on by old creepy men? Because like I feel like women like not that you get used to it, but it's like more common.
Yes, for sure. But like yeah, so that was also a very, like, strange thing. And, you know, aspects of, like, you know, people that are queer that are bringing negative energy to me, which is strange because I would have thought queer people would be bringing more positive energy for me coming out as bisexual. Instead, like, I'm also getting creepy people coming to me because of that.
Interesting. Do you feel like, did you get, like, negativity from the queer community when you came out? Like, you mentioned that, like, people are like, you're not really bi because you have a girlfriend, but, like...
Some, a little bit, but it's just, like, online stuff. So, like, in the general, like, queer friends and everyone that I know, that they've all been very supportive. And when you're going on social media, there's always going to be people that are posting nasty stuff about things. And I would say from that aspect, also, you have no idea who they are. And you also don't even know if they're queer. I'm just assuming they are because they're flirting with me.
Right. Yeah. Who even knows what's going on there?
Yeah. But from the online perspective, I would say I overall got a positive support. And then some were just like, yeah, you're wouldn't come out as gay because that, you know, that's not, it's too difficult to be gay in the industry. And I'm just like, well, I'm not gay. I'm bisexual.
Right.
I wouldn't come out as gay. You're right. But yeah.
Were you worried at all about the backlash of coming out in terms of, like, your music, like, losing potential listeners or, like, maybe the industry biting back at you?
Yeah, I think I was slightly concerned when I was going to be doing this post, but, like, I've always been very truthful in my music and wanting to be myself in all types of my career. So I wasn't really worried about in that sense. And also I wouldn't want to hide that in my career. Like I'm proud of who I am, and I wouldn't, like, if people don't want to listen to my music because of that, then they don't have to listen to my music. That's fine.
Right. Yeah. Get rid of them. You know, you don't need them.
That's not my problem.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at
it.
Yeah. Yeah. So going back to, like, this idea of, like, finding queer community. So what ways have you built community? I mean, you mentioned, like, finding friends from dating apps, and, like, going to Cafe Euphoria.
Cafe Euphoria. I would say, I mean, been making friends through friends as well. Like, as I've made friends at Cafe Euphoria, I've gotten to know their friends, and I've just kind of become part of a group, which is nice.
Nice. That's great. Yeah. So do you have advice for somebody who's come out and maybe they live in a small city and they don't know how to even begin? Maybe they hate dating apps. Like, what would you recommend for getting yourself out there? I know that's a big question.
Yeah. I mean, I would say trying to find places that are kind of like Cafe Euphoria, in the sense of a place that is very openly supporting queerness, and that you can find other queer people there.
Yeah. And quickly for listeners, a Cafe Euphoria is a trans and queer-owned
since we're talking
restaurant
about this over and over again.
Yeah, they're more of a cafe, I would say. But they, like, host a lot of events. Actually, most of my coworkers are bisexual, which is hilarious. One of them does, like, a D&D group at Cafe Euphoria.
Oh, that's great.
Which I find, like, because I think there just needs to be more, like, sober queer spaces.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
So I don't drink.
Okay, gotcha.
And that was also a big thing when I moved to Troy. Like, I didn't know how to make friends because, like, if you're my age, like, most of your social activities to meet people is through drinking, going to bars, and that is not my scene. So I was very thankful to, like, coffee shops and Cafe Euphoria, and for that type of surrounding that I didn't have to be drinking for. Yeah. But yeah.
That's great. So if you could go back, would you come out any differently? Would you still have done it? Do you feel like it made an impact when you came out?
I think I would have, if I knew the response that I would have gotten to it, I would have, like, let, like, some of, like, my family members know a little bit more, because, like, some of my family members weren't aware, and it was just kind of, like, strange having, like, them find out from, like, news articles.
Yeah.
Because
I can see that.
I wasn't expecting it to end up in news articles. Like, I would have been fine with them finding out from my post, but just, like, when it was put in like newspapers and whatnot is just like strange.
Yeah, that's.
And I also wasn't even like asked like about the stuff. Like it just like ended up in these like articles.
Oh, so you never had anyone reach out to you for like a quote or whatever?
No.
Oh, God.
It was just like Sawyer Fredericks comes out as bisexual. It was just like, what?
That's got to be really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I can't imagine that feeling, but at least like you have like a good amount of supportive people in your life to help with that. But yeah. So do you think, in general, do you think it's important to be out as somebody who, you know, again, it has a following, has like, makes music?
I would say that you don't owe your fans anything in that sense. So
True.
You don't owe them that look into your personal life. Mm-hmm. So I think it's not necessary to be out in the industry. I just like being honest with people and being open. And that was why that was the point of that like Truthful Tuesday post was just like something about me.
Yeah, this is who I am kind of thing. Yeah. And it seems like you still talk about it like on your social media when relevant, like for Pride posts and like things like that. So
I've been going to a lot of Pride festivals recently and I've actually gotten invited to like be in some of the parades since I've come out. So it's been nice to be able to like be more a part of that community.
Yeah, definitely. And love a good Pride Fest. Sometimes it's a little too crowded. I feel like there needs to be more like virtual Pride hangouts. I know that that's like kind of lame, especially after like the pandemic and with just like everyone on Zoom all the time. But
yeah, no, I understand that. And I also feel like every time Pride's over, like if you're having a good time at Pride, then when it's over, you're just like, where'd they all go?
Yeah, they all disappeared.
They all disappeared. Like, where'd all the queer people go? So like, I definitely think I wish there was more like activities that got, you know, this queer community out into a group to like do stuff. So, but the festivals are good. They're good.
Good. And so you mentioned that you have a cis female partner, which is great. You're still valid as a bisexual. And I like to say that because it can be very hard to like, even as much as you love your partner and you like want to be with them forever, it's like, it can be a lot. But do you have any advice for like, how you can make your relationship feel more queer and feel like you can be more of yourself even if you're with like a straight or another bi partner, like I guess.
So for me and my partner, we actually can like talk about like who we're attracted to. And that is a very like helpful thing and like feeling more queer and also just like being friends with other queer couples.
That's helpful.
Is very helpful. But like, you know, I've been with my partner for 7 years now.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
Long time. And
so she's been with you through this whole journey.
Yeah, the whole journey. Which, circling back a little bit, I wanted to say, I wasn't like telling, like Abigail knew, that's my partner's name, Abigail. Mm-hmm. She knew I was bisexual, but she didn't know I was doing that like post. And people were messaging her afterwards, like, did you know? She was like, yeah.
Yeah, like you wouldn't do a public post if you didn't like come out to your partner. Yeah. It's funny.
But she wasn't aware that I was doing like a public post, and then it like ended up in news articles and people were messaging her like, did you know that Sawyer Fredericks is, you know, bisexual? Are you okay? And it's like, we're in a healthy relationship. There's no funny business going on. We're good.
No, you really lucked out having like a supportive partner who's like good about it. I feel like it could be a journey to find someone who's like even okay about it, even if you're dating somebody with the same sex too. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, but that's great. So I completely forgot to ask you my like first question that I ask everyone, and that we're like very much into this interview, so I apologize it's so late. But so what would you say is your most bisexual behavior?
Oh, my most bisexual behavior. That's a hard question.
Mm-hmm. It is a hard question. It makes people like really think, which is fun. I can give you my example if that's helpful.
Yeah.
So I'll demonstrate that I like cannot sit normal. I was really behaving before, but this is like I sit weird in chairs, and that's like I feel like a stereotypical bi thing is like you just can't sit normal. I've had guests say that they're like obsessed with iced coffee. Like again, like it's funny because like bisexual people have these stereotypes that are like just really random, but it's just because we want to have something that unifies us. I feel like.
I mean, for bisexual behavior, I mean, I've always been very flamboyant in my dress code, but in less so behavior, I would say my more bisexual thing that I see is that, and I think it also comes into the demisexualness, is I don't really care what parts my partner has, because when you love someone, you're going to have a fun time.
100%. It's funny. I feel the exact same way. And sometimes I'm like, does that mean I'm pansexual? And I'm like, I
get confused after a while, and I'm just
me
like,
too.
I don't want to read up too much on this stuff. And bisexual seems to make sense to me, so I'm like, I'm going with that.
I like it because it feels like it has a political background to it. Like bisexual is like the term that is, more historic. It has more background. Yeah. Not saying that I don't like the term pansexuality, because I use that as well. I find that bisexual, it's like easier for people to understand when you say, even though it's not like totally easy. Like some people are like,
No, I definitely think people are more confused if you say you're pansexual. It's easier for them to grasp when it's just like, oh yeah, women are men. Got it. But yeah.
Nice. So do you feel like, I don't know, like people have stereotyped you or like said like weird things to you since that you've been out?
I mean, yes, as I was saying, like online, people are, flirting with me and being kind of creepy. But other than that, I wouldn't say anything in person, just over online. People just like messaging me on like Instagram. But nothing else.
It could be a whole thing. But let's talk a little bit about your music. I feel like we talked a lot about bisexuality, but what have you been working on lately? I think I saw that you released like a collaborative song recently.
Yeah,
okay.
So I released this song called Burn It Down. It was written by Cassandra Kabinski, and she's the artist I did the duet with. And we re-released the song as like our own version together. That came out on the 23rd, actually. And it's been going really good. We have some shows planned. We're going to be playing at the Linda, the Iron Horse in Northampton, Massachusetts, Linda in Albany. And I think we have one that's not announced, but will be soon. But we're getting like a little bit of like a tour going for that.
Oh, okay.
But otherwise, for music, I released an EP a while back, and now we're planning the full-length album because I've recorded the rest of the songs for that album.
Awesome.
And they're all finished. I'm just getting all my ducks in a row, and we're planning a release for early next year.
So cool. That's so exciting.
Yeah. I'm really excited about it, and I'm also excited in another sense of like being myself in my music is not really worrying too much about what people are thinking about it. So a lot of the songs on this newer album are getting more political as well. So
Gotcha.
I'm excited to be able to share that kind of music with people.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear it. That's really cool. What is the process like making an album? I'm very curious. Like, so obviously there's like the writing stage and the recording, but like, what does that look like for an artist?
So my writing process, I feel like I explained this a lot, but it's basically I'm not the kind of person who's writing down lyrics throughout the day. I have to be playing my guitar or singing like ad-libbing to come up with lyrics. How my writing process is, I will pick up the guitar, start playing whatever chord is seeming nice to me, and I'll start singing and I'll start ad-libbing and kind of figure out the emotion that I am kind of performing the song in. And once I figure out the emotion, I figure out what kind of story would connect to that emotion. And then I create the story and figure out how to tell that story, figure out what other experiences or emotions this character would be feeling in the story, and try to bring as much of, I don't know, I think of it as a lot of like empathic going through the song and trying to relate to this character in it. And a lot of my songs are from my own personal experiences, but a good amount of them aren't. And those are the ones that I'm kind of creating this character that I'm finding ways to connect to.
Nice.
So that's my writing process, and then I will bring that song to my band members, and I try to have them kind of enhance the song. And the recording process goes very smoothly. I've been recording my past 3 albums at Dreamland Recording Studios up in Woodstock, and we've recorded it all to tape and analog, so very old-fashioned, and it's great. And I love the fact that we can't so in Pro Tools you can go back and nudge vocals a little bit. You can't do that on tape. You have to punch back in and sing it in the way that you want to. So what's nice is that there's not a lot of editing afterwards.
Okay.
Because what the recorded product is, that is the song. You can't change it unless you're re-recording it. But that's been a really fun process for me, and that fits my kind of performance better. And so that would be the recording process. And
would you say that?
That's the question.
Yeah, thank you. Would you say that you prefer performing or creating the music?
Oh, I can't decide between the two. I would say I wouldn't want to, I suppose I would keep writing if I couldn't perform. But if I couldn't write, I'm not sure I would keep performing.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Because I want to be creating something, and if I'm not creating something, I don't really want to be performing it.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
So I would say writing I enjoy more than performing, but there's nothing that beats that feeling when you're getting to share this song that you've put your heart and soul into and get a loving response from an audience like that. That is so heartwarming, and nothing really beats that.
Absolutely. Do you have plans in the future, or what is your goal for music in the future in general?
My goals for music in the future, so I'm releasing this album, getting some more songs that are a little more political out there. I would like to actually write a little bit more just queer songs, just to show some representation in my music, because I don't feel like there's a lot of it. In terms of things I want to be releasing, I feel like I want to start doing a lot more collaborations. I'm doing this one with Cassandra Kabinski, but I have ideas of trying to do 518 duets, and just working with, because I have a lot of musician friends up here, and it would be fun to just create little EPs with just 2 songs from that I do duets with these 2 people, and we write a song together, and then we release that, and then I just do that a bunch of times, and it would be a really fun community thing. And I just love getting connected with other artists and musicians up here.
Definitely. Would you say you have a dream collaborator, not just locally, just in general?
I can't say I do, because a lot of times when people will ask me oh, who's an artist that you would love to work with? The truth is I don't really know whether I would love to work with them, because I don't know their writing style. I don't know how they work with others. And that's really, really important to me when it comes to writing a song. And I don't know them. I know their music, but I also don't know how much they were in control of that song when they created it. Whether it was a co-written song, whether it was produced by someone, maybe they're not even happy with how that song sounds. There's so many things I don't know. So I don't feel I can truly choose someone an artist that I think, one of my favorite artists is Ray LaMontagne. I don't know if we would work well together.
I mean, that's fair. It's fair, that you can love someone, and maybe, even with, maybe you love a certain artist, but you would never want to meet them because, you're not sure if it would just ruin
Well, I met Ray LaMontagne. He's great.
Okay, that's
Super
good.
Nice person. I got to go backstage and meet him. Everyone told me he wasn't going to be talkative, and he was so talkative.
That's awesome.
So it's good times. But, yeah, I don't know beyond that of like what his writing process is.
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it's nice that you have the control to pick people that you already know and are friends with.
Yeah.
So that's really nice.
Yeah. And I've been working, I've been working with some of my friends to like try to write some songs. And I'm actually going to be doing a little like songwriting retreat in October, actually, for Song City, which is a thing that's hosted in Troy, which is actually a really cool open mic thing that they host. And they also do performances as well. But I've actually met a lot of my musician friends at that open mic, and they do a songwriting challenge every month where they post a phrase at the beginning of the month, and you have to the end of the month to write a song with that phrase in it, and then you get to perform it at the open mic.
That sounds like fun and a little stressful, but maybe that's just because I'm not a songwriter.
You don't have to write the song. And also, some people, will write like a 30-second song. Like, it doesn't have to be a whole thing. But I've written like a bunch of songs from that and like had a really good time. And I love the songs that I've written from it. It does
force
sometimes you just need that
it.
little bit of motivation.
Yeah.
And also sense of direction to get into stuff. But Scott Womer runs Song City, and he's does this like thing called Inc., which is a songwriting retreat that I'm going to be going to. So I'll be getting to work with other artists and maybe do some collaborations at that.
That's cool. Would you ever host your own retreat?
Yes, I would. But I feel like I want to have my own house by then. I want to be able to be like, come to my house and we'll all sit around the campfire, and I have places for people to stay over.
Oh, yeah.
And we can have, a whole songwriting week. So.
God, and like buying a house right now is
impossible.
I keep trying to explain this to my mom because she's like, "Oh, you should buy a house now." And I'm like, I legitimately, there's no way.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
It's so sad, but
yeah. No, that's been a huge thing that I've been, me and my partner have been trying to do, and it's just like the housing market right now is insane.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
It's really sad.
It's funny. I've actually, a song that's going to be on my full length album when it comes out next year. The song I actually wrote for it is from the songwriting challenge, and the songwriting challenge, the phrase was "funeral parking only." So at the time, I didn't really know what I was going to do with it, and then my partner was just kind of like, "You could do it." And I was like, yeah, you're right. I'll try to write something. And I ended up writing a song about basically the housing crisis right now, in the sense of people in my generation are not able to get a house. And the only way we get a house is by inheriting it. So
literally,
the housing market right now is funeral parking only.
That's so creative. I wouldn't have put that together.
Yeah.
See, that's why I feel like those types of prompts are really helpful for writers just in general.
And it's so interesting to see where all the artists like take it. Like some people take it very literally, and some people just go off a whole different direction. You're just like, oh, wow.
So that's cool. That's a good way to get going. Do you have any advice for anyone who wants to start making music, or maybe they do it in a smaller scale but want to start like actually getting their music out there?
Yeah, so for just getting into music, I would say get around other people that make music, because the only way to, same as learning a language, you want to be around people that speak it.
That's so true. I'm trying Duolingo right now because I'm trying to learn Spanish because my partner's family, they speak Spanish, and Duolingo is not doing it.
No.
Does not do the job.
No, I was trying to learn French on that for a long time, and I had a year streak, and then I lost it. And I was
That's impressive. I got to like 2 weeks, and I was like, I'm tired of Duolingo yelling at me every day. I'm tired.
I'm tired. But yeah, so I would say get around other people that, are into music and are starting out in it. Go to open mics if you're at that stage. Start performing. Start writing, like if that interests you, and if you're not like a singer-songwriter that has an instrument to accompany it, so like if it's not possible for you to just like write a song, because I feel like it's sometimes more difficult for someone who just like plays guitar or someone who just like plays drums to be able to feel like they can create something on their own. And that's when it becomes really important to start going to these like open mics, because a lot of people are just like, yeah, hop up on stage and play drums for this song. Like, these are the 3 chords, tag along.
That's awesome.
And if you have the confidence for that, and even if you don't, it's still a good time.
That's some great advice. I feel like you just have to push yourself to just try.
It's definitely that. And I mean, like, I started doing open mics when I was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. And I was terrified when I first do it. And my mom said that, like, after I performed, I was just green-faced and ran outside and, like, went into the car and was just like, all right, I'm ready to go home. But I still enjoyed it, and I wanted to do it again. And one of the biggest things that's inspiring is seeing the other people get up there and do it.
Oh.
And seeing them and being around that community makes you feel like, yeah, I can do this. Mm-hmm. So I highly recommend open mics. And if you want to get into more performing sense, start busking. Busking can really help you get over stage fright.
Wait, sorry, what was busking, you said?
Busking, like playing for tips, like out on the street or anything like that.
Okay, yeah.
At places that allow it.
Okay, gotcha.
Because not tons of places. I was doing a lot of busking when I was around like 13 or 14, actually, in Saratoga.
It's a good place for that.
Yeah, it's a great place for that. And I just set up my guitar case, set up my little like mic stand and whatnot, and started performing for people and just played for tips. And it was really nice because, and the reason why I say that it helps you get over stage fright is because you're not really worried too much what people are thinking of the music you're playing, because so many people are just going by, and you can't take that to heart because you're just playing out on the street. They got things they're doing. So you end up to start performing for yourself to some extent. And how I always look at my performances, I want it to be, how do I say this? I want my performance, I want to be proud of my performance. Like, I'm not worried what other people are thinking of it. As long as I'm happy with how I'm sounding, I'm like, yes, that is the best that I could do. That is, like, I always want to put on my best performance, regardless of the audience or who's listening, what type of event, whether it's big or small. Like, I want to put my heart and soul into the songs. Yeah,
well, you're doing it for you at the end of the day, not for anyone else.
Exactly.
So, which should be the intention. So, but yeah, Sawyer, it's been awesome to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add in or potentially plug?
Yeah, let me think for other. When is this podcast coming out?
October. Early October. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, then when shows this month won't make sense. Let me think for October.
People could also just look on your social media accounts. And stuff
I could tag that. So one of the best ways to find my upcoming shows is to follow me on Bands in Town. And you can go to SawyerFredericks.com to follow that link, and it'll bring you to my Bands in Town. And
cool.
Bands in Town is great because it notifies you whenever I'm playing near your location.
Oh, that's smart. Okay. I'll make sure to plug that in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
And what about, what's your Instagram and stuff?
So my Instagram is Sawyer FRDRX. Okay. And I've been doing regular posts of Song Sundays on there. I do a cover every week, or a cover every other week, and an original every other. So there's lots of music that I'm posting routinely on those. So it's fun to definitely follow that. And you can also check out my Patreon page. I've been doing a lot of fun things for my patrons where I let them vote on a song every month of what song I should record a little voice memo, and then I send out that little recording to all of them. And
that's fun.
It's really cute, and I'm really thankful to all my patrons because they helped me get through COVID and all of the disaster radius that happened to artists through that time.
Oh yeah, that's such a good point. Oh my gosh, we didn't even cover what that experience was like. Another time. It's okay.
Another time. We don't need to think about that anymore.
But anyways, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. I really, really appreciate it. And since we're local, we should definitely hang out sometime. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And for those of you who are still listening, you can support the podcast by subscribing on Apple and Spotify, or Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and giving a review is actually very, very helpful. If you have the time, it could be like a 2-second review, like thumbs up, this show's cool. It really does help and help spread the bi agenda, you know? So that's what we love to hear. You can follow us. It's Bisexual Behavior on all social media accounts like Instagram, and you can follow me. I'm at talia.tatiana, which I don't really post that much, but I do have bisexual behavior, so. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you for having me.